Welcome into the Football Guys podcast. I am Jagger May, and with me, as always, is our Dynasty captain and OG, Jeff Bell. And then we got ourselves an actual superstar, CBS's Heath Cummings. We got to hype you up, Heath, because I'm going to use you and abuse you and ask you so many questions. And we are talking buys and sells. We're going to give you 6 buys and 6 sells. We'll start with some positives. Heath, give me your first buy.
Yeah, and I went looking for my buys over at DLF and just looking at ADP and what the cost was. And I saw Kyler Murray at QB 11, and I've got him at QB 8. And honestly, he's closer to QB 5 for me than he is QB 11. Somebody who has consistently, when he's been healthy, been in that 20 to 24 fantasy point per game range. And I think he has more upside than that. When you look at Kyler Murray with DeAndre Hopkins, just that specific sample, when he was healthy, he was a no doubt about it top 5 fantasy quarterback. And I expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to enter the NFL looking a lot like DeAndre Hopkins in terms of how much he helps a quarterback. I love Trey McBride and what this offense does in terms of making things easier for the quarterback with those dump offs to the tight end. I expect Arizona to be in contention for a wild card spot this year because of how good their offense is. And I like Kyler as a top 8 dynasty quarterback right now, who might be top 5 by November.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like you said, a lot of people really don't like Kyler and got a bad taste in their mouth because of Call of Duty. But I mean, this is fantasy, guys, and rushing does a lot. And whatever happens with Arizona's win column, Kyler Murray puts up points. If you just look at the second half of the season when Kyler came back, that offense put up, I think, like 3 or 4 more points a game, which is significant when you consider just how poor they were with rotational quarterbacks. So I am 100% with you. Jeff, what do you think about that?
I think that's a fantastic call, and we've seen Kyler's value raise this offseason. I know early in startups, you were getting him almost in the third round in some startup drafts, and now, Jag, you pulled him at number 8, and I thought that was a great pick in our second Dynasty Listener League that we did. Mm-hmm. We are doing a roundtable with Football Guys. We do a lot of roundtables, and we're taking a look at Arizona. That one, I believe, will be coming out Monday, I think, but I called Kyler Murray my sleeper for redraft for this year for the Cardinals because I'm seeing him underdog. I'm doing a lot of underdog, and he's quarterback 7 there, which I think is probably a pretty fair valuation. But I see other ADPs or other rankings have him outside of the top 12, and I just can't believe that. He was quarterback 7 from the time that he returned last year, and that was coming off an injury. He's got 1 more year healthy. Adding Marvin Harrison Jr., I think it's a great call.
Yeah, and it's like an underdog right now. He's, if you think about stacks in best ball, he's the easiest stack to get right now. I mean, you can get Kyler and MHJ on the turn of a lot of places. You can get Kyler or Trey McBride. Michael Wilson costs nothing. It's pretty easy to make plus EV moves, estimated value moves, by just getting Kyler Murray on your roster. So I'm all for it. And before we get to Jeff's buy, make sure to like, subscribe if you like what we're doing here. It really helps us out. And more importantly, if you're on the audio side, go to Spotify and Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review. Again, if you want to make fun of Jeff, that's the spot. As long as you give us 5 stars. You want to make fun of me, I don't care. Just give us those 5 stars, and then go over to footballguys.com. Make sure that you subscribe there, and make sure go to footballguys.com/plans to make it easier for you. And we got best ball content, IDP, like Jeff says. We have those staff roundtables that I don't do because I don't read or write. And we got another big feature coming out for you soon. And then with that being said, Jeff, your next guy is someone that I am certainly a part of the problem of why he's so low. Why don't you go ahead and give us some?
Yeah, we just did a trade last night, Jag. I gave you Jerome Ford, and you gave me Quentin Johnston from the Chargers. And so Quentin Johnston is my dynasty buy. I think that when you look at startup valuation, wide receiver 67 on Keep Trade Cut, I mean, everybody's just throwing him out. But I think that when you look at everything coming out of the camp, the way that the Chargers are talking about him so far, they want to use him a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, give him opportunity to create with the ball in his hands, and you really utilize his strengths a lot more than what maybe last year's team did, trying to use him more as a vertical receiver. Jim Harbaugh was on the sideline with Michigan, saw him in the college football playoff. He was a big part in knocking Jim Harbaugh out of the college football playoff 2 years ago. And so now he's the coach there. I think this wide receiver tree is wide open. And, I love Lad McConkey, and that's a great pick pick there. And Josh Palmer will certainly have his role as a vertical field stretcher, but there's a lot of room for Johnston to work in this rotation. From last year, from week 8 on, he saw 70% snaps through every single game. He paced a lot closer to about 600 yards as opposed to kind of the lower numbers there. So we saw a little bit of production last year. We knew he was going to be a project, and the Chargers are invested here.
Yeah, like I said, if there are 100 Quentin Johnston haters, I am one of them. If there are 10, I'm one of the 10. If there is one, I am the one. If there is none, then I am dead. That's how I feel about Quentin Johnston. A lot of that is like, and like Jeff, you and I have talked about it. He's just not my flavor. You know, like if wide receivers were a flavor, it would be like Quentin Johnston would be cilantro, and I have that weak gene that makes me not like cilantro. That's what it'd be for Quentin Johnston for me. And and where I push back is that I think teams will take time for the premium positions. And granted, wide receiver is a premium position, but like quarterback, pass rusher, a little bit offensive line. But with wide receivers, they're getting production right away to where they're even kind of using the same model that they're using for quarterbacks. Like let's get a wide receiver on a rookie in a rookie contract. So like for me, he's so cheap right now that like why not? But
Exactly.
like why not? He's so cheap. Why not? Well, like comparison to our trade with Jerome Ford, to me that's a smash because like I know Jerome Ford is going to be somebody at least like worthwhile. I don't know about Quentin Johnston, and that trade, like I came back from the gym and I sat in my car for 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, let's. But my fiance is like, what are you doing out there? I'm like, baby, I'm doing deals. Like, just be patient with me. So Heath, where are you on the Quentin Johnston meridian? Are you on the hater side with me, or or he's so cheap it doesn't matter?
No, I think I was definitely on the hater side coming out of college. I don't think we learned anything at all last year because the Chargers used him in a way that absolutely the Quentin Johnston believers didn't think he could do what the Chargers asked him to do last year. He did not come into the NFL as someone equipped to run down the sideline away from the quarterback and catch passes.
Yes.
That was just not something that he could do. And so I think that Greg Roman's already talked about how they know they have to use him differently than he was used last year. At wide receiver 67, I'm pretty much in. Like I've got him at wide receiver 55. I do have Jerome Ford a little bit ahead of him, but I think it's an excellent trade of just like two guys that one of you believes in this guy, one of you believes in the other guy. There's at least a 40% chance that you both cut them by a year from now, which is fine. They might both be terrible, but it's a good trade. Like those are the types of deals that they're in the right range. Trade this guy for that guy. Great. He's a little bit undervalued now. I'm not super optimistic, but I don't think that they gave him enough of a chance as a rookie to be successful that we should make very much out of last year at all.
Well, that was just depressing, Heath, because you made me look bad. Like I'm just a hater now. I guess I get it. It makes sense. Like, and I'm not normally one where I get like emotional, where people are like, well, he burned me last year, so I
Right.
can't, do him again. That's not me at all. But like I said, it's more of like I wouldn't. When you tell me you got to use a wide receiver a specific way, I don't want them. That's it. Like that's the way it rolls for me. Like I don't want them. It's like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, I don't even roster because like
Right. And that
I'm
hurts.
trying to, yeah, and I have to move him. So like for like even laterally, I just want a wide receiver that can do it all.
Points are points.
But we'll move on to my next guy, and believe it or not, in this same league with Jeff, this is how bad my team is. So like maybe I should have just gambled on Quentin Johnston over Jerome Ford, but I only have one QB, and it is Drake May. And I still think Drake May is a buy, especially if you have an established QB, but you aren't quite competing. I do think that you could take like this is a QB I would take a chance on. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying that you need to trade like your premium assets or anything like that, but if you want to tear down from a wide receiver or something like that, and you're weak at QB, there's not going to be a cheaper time to get Drake May, and he has a profile like a lot of people forget. They kind of treat him like a like a white wide receiver like Julian Edelman, like
Mhm.
he's quicker than fast, like that. He's actually just a mobile QB, like I like him a lot. Like to me, he's kind of like a hybrid of Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. Now I'm not saying that he's immediately going to be one of those players, but in almost if he got drafted almost any other team, I think we would have been talking about him, ranking him higher and even redraft than we have him right now. So, but we play dynasty, guys. We play the long game.
Right.
So even if the Patriots suck for having an offensive line, I'm still buying Drake May. Heath, are you a Drake May guy? Are you a hater? Are we on the opposites of this meridian again?
Okay, so I traded for Drake May like 2 weeks ago. So I think
Mhm,
that qualifies me as at least not a hater. Now I had the
mhm.
4th pick in a rookie draft and it was super flex and I knew the guy wanted Malik Neighbors, and so I accepted Trey McBride, moved back to 7 and took Drake May. So I got Trey McBride and Drake May for Malik Neighbors, and I felt pretty good about that. But I'm not an anti Drake May guy. You said he's a combination of Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. I think I would say that he's a combination of Justin Herbert and Daniel Jones, because I do see quite a bit of risk. And I think a lot of risk for a quarterback going into a situation with a questionable at best offensive line and maybe not a number 1 or a number 2 wide receiver. Like, you can establish a lot of bad habits when you don't have any help. My problem with Drake May is more about the situation than it is the player. I do think you're 100% right that people underestimate his rushing ability. And if he gets to start this year, we might see that turn into some surprising fantasy production. I'm not so sure they won't start Jacoby Brissett all year long and just rest Drake May for a year, which might be okay for your terrible dynasty team because then you'll get a better draft pick.
Yeah, yeah, like Luther Burden. Here we go. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like, to be honest, if it was still the same Pats, if Bill Belichick was still there, I'd be like, it's over. And I'm a Pats fan. I'm a Pats fan. I'd be like, it's over, guys. Drake May's done. But Alex Van Pelt does a lot for me, and I like the way that, specifically that Kevin
Mhm.
Stefanski scheme. It's one of the few that will adjust to its personnel, and pretty quarterback friendly. So like with Drake May, it's like get prepared to speak naked boot, buddy, because like that's what he's going to be doing a lot. So almost if he's going to be doing a lot of naked boots or boots with that terrible offensive line, let's kill Jacoby Brissett. I know you are a Bills fan, so you have some natural hate in you, Jeff. But you are still a little bit more positive than most. What do you think about Drake May?
It's just interesting because if you look at his keep trade cut historic value, you go back to the beginning of February, he was worth about 6,900 keep trade cut points, which puts him around Garrett Wilson, Kyler Murray value. That's almost dropped 2,000. And what have we seen? We've seen him go top 3 in the drafts. We've seen him everything that we were hoping to see. In the time that we've seen all these quarterbacks come in hyped and then fall down the board, we saw the opposite with Drake May. Yeah, we didn't love him landing in New England, but at the same time, he's got a young receiving core he can grow with. And, that obviously they re-signed Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be there. It's a rebuild, but like Heath said, and I think they're going to start Jacoby Brissett, take their time on Drake May. I just don't understand the hate, I guess, maybe. And it seems like every year there ends up being a quarterback that lands in that 3rd to 5th round startup valuation that ends up being a top 10 superflex pick in the next year. And I think that Drake May has a probably better chance than anybody else going in that range right now to be that guy.
So I want to I
Yeah.
want to interrupt for a second because Jagger mentioned your natural hatred for the Patriots, and I think it was probably more natural like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Kansas City memorabilia behind me, and I'm just curious how much of that natural Patriots hatred has moved to hatred of Kansas City.
It's
Well,
made me feel sorry for you. Let's put it that way.
it's so my best man was a Patriots fan. My college
Mhm.
roommate was a Patriots fan, and I always had respect for Bill Belichick, Brady, everything that they did. I had a lot of respect for them. I have respect for certainly for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, but it feels like completely different levels because we were irrelevant during the Patriots run. It didn't really
Right.
matter there.
Yeah, you're certainly not irrelevant now. I mean, the
No,
division round's relevant.
the Chiefs have carved the Bills' heart out with a spoon over the last 5 years or so, and
Mhm.
especially it's just the curse of Babe Ruth. It really feels like, because we traded Patrick Mahomes to you, and now we're going to lose to Patrick Mahomes.
Well, Xavier
every
Worthy
single
won't work
year.
out the same way, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's. I mean, you gotta get one right every once in a while, but no, it's definitely a mind-numbing hatred for the Chiefs right now. So I'll do respect, but
Good.
It's pretty fun being an underdog because like everyone, granted, if depending like Alfredo, he's a Dolphins fan. Like if I complain at all in the group chat, they're like, "Shut up!" Like you had 6 years, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, guys, like let me enjoy sucking a little bit, like
Yeah.
like I feel like we'll come back.
Alfredo just wishes someone would hate the Dolphins. Like he wishes there was some reason for someone to dislike the Dolphins. We just kind of they're cute, look, cute Dolphins.
well,
Yeah.
and to add on top of it, my daughter is a Dolphins fan, has decided she's into Patriots, likes the Dolphins, but also is a Swiftie. So the Chiefs are now her second favorite team. And so she's got 2 football helmets in her room, a Dolphins helmet and a Chiefs helmet. I'm just wondering, how am I allowing this to happen in my own house? But
Well, I mean, you want your children to be happy. You should probably push her towards the Chiefs.
yes.
Tell Josh Allen to date a pop star. He's a
Well, he was
good-looking
dating
dude,
him back, Chris.
That's not good enough, man. You need like Olivia Rodrigo or something like that. Whoever's hot right now. Okay. With that being said, when we start talking about pop stars, we got to move on. Saquon Barkley is yours, Heath. He's currently RB8 on Keep Trade Cut. I think this is great. Why do you want to sell him besides the fact that he's a running back?
Well, he's a running back, and he's my RB13, and I don't really buy that this move to Philadelphia is going to be a great positive for his value this year. If anything, I think it's probably neutral. Yes, the offense is better, but also Jalen Hurts is going to score somewhere between 12 and 15 rushing touchdowns at the last 3 years, or any indication. Neither Hurts or Kellen Moore have a very good history of designing targets for running backs, so I wouldn't be surprised if his targets actually go down a little bit. And I don't think we can count on the Eagles' offensive line being exactly the same thing with their Hall of Fame center, Jason Kelce, no longer being there. So I view Barkley as a 27-year-old low-end RB1. He'll be 27 by week 1 at least. I'm not sure exactly what his date of birth is today, but and I just don't get that excited about those kind of guys. I don't know how you can be right around RB8 for redraft purposes, be 26 or 27 years old, and be RB8 for dynasty purposes.
Yeah, and it's for me. We're getting too far into redraft. Jeff, I mean, you've talked about this before. I even was on this show about how like dynasties moving into like this kind of crypto mindset where like, we got this crazy market volatility where why is Saquon Barkley ranked ahead of Jonathan Cooper? Or Jonathan Brooks, excuse me. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I heard someone's like, well, he tore his ACL. Like, yeah, he tore his ACL in the middle of the college season. Like, oh no, he won't be 100% by week 3. Like it's dynasty. I want high draft capital. Yeah, like I would trade Saquon Barkley straight across for Jonathan Brooks, and I'm sure someone could get that done. Like I said, before you even made anything, you had me at running back. Get him off your roster for someone cheaper. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Saquon Barkley? I know we pretty much share a philosophy. Like if it was like a redraft, I'll care about Saquon Barkley a little bit, but still not a whole lot.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this good of a sell window in Dynasty, I think, for 3 or 4 years on Saquon Barkley. And so if you're not taking advantage of it, then what are you doing playing Dynasty? That's kind of just the way that I look at it. I think that you can tier down, you can grab a first round pick and maybe another player that can give you 80% of the points that Saquon Barkley might give you very easily, I think, right now. And so that's the type of move that you should be looking to do. That's just playing Dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll move on to your sell, which some people don't want to cope with. And I feel like we do this every year. Jeff, give us yours.
Yeah, Zamir White from the Raiders. And obviously Zamir White had a fantastic last 4 or 5 weeks of last year when the Raiders were playing out the string and they were beating everybody's brains in that they were playing. But yeah, who else were they going to give the ball to? I mean, they had Amir Abdullah, they had Brandon Bolden, and I know no Patriots slander here, but I don't think you're giving the ball to Brandon Bolden in a lost year instead of just feeding Zamir White. Zamir White is flirting with, he's a running back 22 on Keep Trade Cut. If Zamir White is flirting with running back top 20 valuation, and he's a player that's probably not going to catch too many passes, he's 25 years old, basically essentially 25 years old, playing on a team that probably is not going to be playing from ahead very often. I mean, this just screams sell to me. This is your opportunity. You got this guy for absolutely nothing. You held him for a year or two. Now it's time to cash in, move on, and grab the next guy that you're going to get for nothing and able to cash in there.
Yeah, and again, guys, it's Dynasty. I understand if you are a true contender and you might need a running back, maybe, but I still think that's a mistake. But why wouldn't you just go trade him? To be honest, I would trade him for Dylan Laube plus in a heartbeat. Like that's the running back that you probably want. Heath, you look like you're about to explode. What do you think about?
No, I was just, and if it looked like I was looking at my phone, I was doing it for content purposes.
For sure.
I was trying to look up all the Dave Kluge Zamir White tweets so I could just cite some of those because he's a big Zamir White guy.
I've sold a lot of Zamir White to Dave.
A lot of Zamir White Kluge tweets. Yes. No, this is where I think like the divergence happens between dynasty theory and playing in an actual dynasty league. I picked Zamir White up off the waiver wire in a 14-team dynasty league, like week 10 of last year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Week 11, something like that. And he was not touching the ball. Like you mentioned Brandon Bolden, I think he might have had more touches than White at that point in the season. Amir Abdullah certainly did. But I am a contender. I got no interest in trading him for Dylan Laube and parts. Like I'm going to start Zamir White this year until the wheels fall off. And it's difficult to rank him in the context of a Zach Charbonnet or a Tyjae Spears or those Jerome Ford, those guys who we might think are actually more talented, but aren't set up in as good a situation. What I will say is like the idea of betting against this guy over the last 4 or 5 seasons has won at least 70% of the time. So I'm not anti-selling him. I just think it's a tough spot if you're a contender and you have Zamir White, because I don't know that anybody views him as more than a 1-year option. Like, can you even turn him into a Joe Mixon or an Aaron Jones or somebody like that who has pretty similar season projection for this year, and who knows beyond that. But yeah, if you're not a contender and you have Zamir White, why are you rostering running backs?
You actually bring up an excellent point, because I do have one roster where I stripped it down to the studs, and all I did was buy wide receivers low for 2 years. So I have I literally I was like just Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, Garrett Wilson, like all I needed was quarterbacks. So I ended up with I traded for Josh Allen because some guy was insane and I wanted to get rid of him. So I got Josh Allen and then Drake May. And then my running back situation, I was like, well, like I don't believe in the consistent like productive struggle. And I've tried to move Zamir White, and I like, well, you're my guy now. Like I want to at least try to compete. I've been paying $100 every year for 3 years. I want to try to get something.
Right. Yes.
I'm kind of stuck with him. So it makes sense. Like Zamir White, if you look, I always say to Meridian on these charts, it's just like, how much can you really get? And how, like, you could just let him like die on your roster. So I understand it. So with that being said, we'll move on to my sell, and my sell isn't very popular and people are going to hate me for it.
Good.
But it's the truth. It's CJ Stroud. He's a sell right now. And I know this is hard to do, and he almost kind of fits into that same but different categories of Zamir White. Like, how much value can you get from him, and how much dynasty value are you losing? I don't think people realize that we play a game of math.
Right.
And CJ Stroud has to throw 3 touchdowns a game to get anywhere close to where Josh Allen is. I'm being very, very realistic that like for him to have a spike week, he has to throw 3 touchdowns. And if you're a betting man, which I am, that doesn't happen as often as people would like to imagine. He only rushes so much. So like why wouldn't you, like everyone hates Joe Burrow right now. That's the new hotness. Like I would go trade Joe Burrow and get something, or I'd get Justin Herbert and go get something. And I know that sounds crazy, but to me, Justin Herbert has the same upside as Josh Allen long term, or excuse me, as CJ Stroud long term, if you really think about it. So like CJ Stroud is QB3 on Keep Trade Cut right now, and he doesn't rush. That's just unheard of. Jeff, we'll start with you. I'm sure you kind of agree with me a little bit on here because again, this is a math question. Do you think CJ Stroud's overvalued right now?
The mathematical argument, you're exactly right. I don't think there's any argument against that. But I think that I really love this one. And I think that you really hit the heart of what buy and sell content, just thoughts should be. If you don't have an initial jerk reaction, the opposite direction when you hear a buy or sell, I don't know that that's a true buy or sell. Because I see if everybody's saying the same player is a sell, then they're just valued wrong, where they're wrong in the chart. You can't just, everybody can say they sell this player or buy this player because the rankings are just wrong. But whereas if you don't have the initial gut, oh my God, you couldn't sell him. Boom. That's when you need to sell him.
Yeah. That's like I've been really bullish to anyone who's watched me on Football Guys for the past 2 years. I haven't shut up about Anthony Richardson, and I'm going to use any opportunity. If you can go get Anthony Richardson plus for CJ Stroud, go do it right now.
Well,
like
this also illustrates like a little bit of a divide. I think CBS is on the minority side of, but our standard scoring system is 6 points per pass touchdown.
Yeah.
Most of the other sites, the standard scoring system is 4 points per pass touchdown. The math is much different for CJ Stroud in terms of being a top 5 quarterback in those two formats. It's a lot easier for him to be a top. I think he's my QB5. So I would still agree. Like even at CBS where it's 6 points per pass touchdown, I would rather sell CJ Stroud if the value is QB3. But it's easier to get him to QB3, especially if you're somebody who takes the long lookout. He's probably got a decade, 15 years of being a top 6 or 7 quarterback in that format. But in 4 point per pass touchdown, I cannot imagine valuing him anywhere close to that.
Yeah, and this is where we get weird into like theory. Me and Jeff kind of hit on this our last episode about the difference between like a startup value and then trade value.
Right.
Because in a startup, I'm going to, and people, Chad Parsons brought me on his pod just to ask me why I had CJ Stroud ahead of Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, I tell him it's like sorting a spreadsheet. I sort by, are you good? Are you young? And like CJ Stroud is good and he's young, so I just put him ahead of Mahomes. Is it? Oh, well, you're a Chiefs fan. So it's just like I would take Stroud ahead of him for that reason alone. I know that's crazy, but then I would still try to trade him. Like after the draft, I'm gonna go try to buy Mahomes. Probably won't get a deal done. But if I could get Mahomes in like a second rounder, I'm like hot dog. If I get Mahomes in the third, it's probably a win at the end of the day. And that's kind of why I tell people to try to play chess. Don't get too cute because sometimes I'm like, I try to do some wild stuff and I'm like, did I really think I could plan 5 moves ahead and not think other humans' opinions weren't going to affect that? But we have fun here. So I get it. With that being said,
go ahead on Stroud. I just wanted to say that him being at the top of the rankings, we tend to think about what he has to do for that ceiling to be able to score along with Josh Allen. What we don't really tend to think about is if that production scales back at all and you're looking at now a guy that's getting 15, 16 points per game versus a guy that's floor is around 20 points per game, that's a different conversation. And if you're quarterback 3, number 3 overall in Superflex valuation on that, a player that's giving you 16, 17 points per game, that's a scary proposition. And so that's, I think, almost the more relevant point with Stroud than having that ceiling or what he has to do to have the same ceiling.
I think that's exactly right. I do think I probably like Stroud a little bit better in Superflex than I do in one quarterback because I like floor a little more in that format. And I do think Stroud's advantage over the running quarterbacks is his floor.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, like, again, someone like Anthony Richardson, I play risk it for the biscuit. Like, we're going all in, or you're either first or you're last if it's my roster.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't start thinking about floor until like I let my wide receivers give me a good floor. Let's put it that way. Like, I don't like the boom bust wide receivers, and a quarterback I'm willing to do a little bit more. And we stay on the same team with your guy. A huge debate of who's going to be CJ Stroud's dude. You have Tank Dell. Tell us about that, Heath.
Yeah, this is my favorite Texans wide receiver in Dynasty. And I'm moving closer. I don't think I'm brave enough. I'm moving closer to making him my favorite Texans wide receiver in redraft. When you look at the games that Tank Dell and Nico Collins played together last year, there were 7 of them. They were basically the same guy in terms of fantasy points per game, in terms of targets, in terms of production. When I see that, and I see a first-year wide receiver and a third-year wide receiver, my impression is, well, the first-year guy is still going to get a little bit, improve a little bit more than the third-year guy is, especially when we're talking about a wide receiver that in college, his final 2 years at Houston, 2,700 yards and 29 touchdowns, and everybody just kind of discounted it because he's short and he's light. I feel like if he doesn't get hurt again this year, and that is the big like screaming orange flag, maybe red flag for some people, is we had size concerns coming in and then he got hurt in year 1. But if he stays healthy, I expect that by October, maybe November, he's a top 12 dynasty wide receiver for everyone. He was on a pace for 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns in his healthy games last year. CJ Stroud loves the guy, can't hardly go out in public without talking about how much he loves Tank Dell, and was the guy who told the Texans brass to draft Tank Dell. I think this is the guy who becomes CJ Stroud's number 1 wide receiver this year, and is that for the next 5 to 10.
I agree with you. And my favorite thing about CJ Stroud is that he wasn't on the Texas for an hour. And he's like, all right, cool. Can you get my boy? It's like,
not even teammate, just like some dude that I've watched play, and I'm like, I need him.
Yeah, exactly. It says a lot. And I would agree with you. Like, I love Nico Collins as well. But when you think about bang for buck, and again, like me and Jeff have been waist deep in startups right now. And like I've missed out on Tank Dell because around his range is kind of where I'm taking my tight end. But where I like, let's say I missed that top tier tight end. Oh, I got to settle for Tank Dell as my wide receiver 3. Oh, like I'll do that every time right now. Like to be honest, it's probably a good build to just kind of pass up those elite tight ends. Go get Tank Dell, and you have 3 studs at wide receiver. And then you can get like Evan Ingram later, who's probably still going to be tight end 5 when it's all said and done if he's healthy. So to me, he's the ultimate buy. Jeff, I'm assuming you're pro Tank Dell as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're hardwired to be either or and not both. And the first time that this offseason somebody asked me, well, is it Nico or Dell for you? And my reaction was both. I like both of them. I think that there's ceilings there for both of them. So to buy the cheaper option, I think is fantastic play.
Yeah. And it's like, to me, everyone's like, who's odd man out? I know that Stephon Diggs has been near and dear to our hearts, guys, but Father Time's undefeated, baby. And you should probably, this is Dynasty, you should probably bet on one of the other 2 guys, especially Stephon Diggs is on a 1-year deal. He's a mercenary right now. He's like, they're going all in this year to compete. Yep. So
it's like, I think it's just as likely that he ends his Texans career the same way Antonio Brown ended his Buccaneers career as it is that he's the wide receiver 1 for the Texans this year. My rule in Dynasty is if you have a wide receiver, it's 28, 20, and this started back with Allen Robinson and AJ Green. You have a wide receiver that's 28, 29 years old that shows you over the last half of the season that he's done. Believe him.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you're saying he's going to finish shirtless in the end zone, waving goodbye?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he fits the profile. He's so extra. We moved to my guy, another Jagger special, someone I haven't shut up about on socials, is Ricky Pearsall. Guys, I know you guys are listening because I'm in startups with you in our listener leagues, and I haven't been able to get him anymore. Ricky Pearsall is the I'm sorry, I skipped. Thank you, Jeff, for fixing that. Like Ricky Pearsall is the person you need to buy right now. Everyone says, like, why are you raking them so high when they have so many people there? How many years in a row are we going to watch 49ers have the most efficient offense in the NFL? every year they're like, well, they can't sustain this level of efficiency. It's like, I think they can because they're smart about their personnel. Like, I think they 100% can. And I think you guys got to eliminate your priors. And then on top of that, they have said the quiet part out loud several times that they're probably going to move Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. This is one of those things where and I get it. It's easy, guys. I used to be a Justin Fields fan. That doesn't look so good right now. But sometimes we need to cope with reality and listen to all the smoke signals that teams are giving us. Brandon Ayuk's probably still going to be a good receiver. It's just not going to be on the 49ers, and they drafted someone that kind of fits his profile. I don't care that he's old. I don't care that he didn't have production because he's at Florida. You just want to first round indication is one of the highest stickiest things that we know about future production, unless your name's Quentin Johnston. Shout out to Jeff. But that first round draft capital, you want them on your team. So it doesn't make much sense to me. Heath, were you big on Pearsall before the draft? Are you on him now? Are you? Oh, that face.
I don't want to get kicked off the show. I'd like to be able to come back someday. I've had a great relationship with football guys. Are you a big Xavier Legette guy?
That's a different conversation. No, I'm not. They're different kinds of players. Have I drafted Legette? Yes, because he's so cheap. But
I am not currently buying rookie Pearsall at a wide receiver 38 cost. Because I don't think San Francisco is going to give Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel away. And I think teams are rightly concerned. Can this guy that Kyle Shanahan, the efficiency genius, not necessarily the playoff genius, but the efficiency genius, has made look like a superstar on very low volume, come be a superstar on high volume on my team? I'm not sure. He made Jimmy Garoppolo look like a superstar quarterback in terms of offensive efficiency, and that's clearly not true. So I'm not sure they're getting the offer. I say that because I'm not sure. I think Brandon Ayuk's very good. Deebo Samuel, I love. I'm not sure they're getting the offers for those guys that are fair market value, and they're not going to just give them away. And they have shown us that they're okay with letting a first round pick just sit on the bench until they trade him away for a fourth 3 years later.
Yeah. Jeff, put Heath down on the Dunzo list. He's Dunzo. No, I'm just kidding. Ayuk, I think Ayuk is a Jefferson level talent. I think he's in that tier of talent. I know people think I'm crazy, but I think that Kyle Shanahan has a little bit to do with the efficiency, but you got to give a little bit. I
wasn't trying to put down Ayuk. It just seems like they wanted to trade him. They sent these same smoke signals 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. They wanted to trade one of these guys during the NFL draft. The only reason that I can come up with that it didn't happen is because nobody around the league would meet their asking price.
Well,
that makes sense.
I think that if they wanted, I think if they wanted to trade Brandon Ayuk, he would not be a 49er. If they could trade Deebo Samuel, he would not be a 49er. I think that the value between the two of them is night and day, to be honest with you, when you look around the league, because I think Ayuk is the type of player that almost any team in the league can look at him and say, we can put him into our system. We know what he can do in our system. Whereas Deebo Samuel is the type of player that teams really have to say, we're going to build this role, the Deebo role, into our offense to allow Deebo Samuel to work. And so that's where I think that the team, they're going to keep both guys this year. And so that's why Pearsall's not a buy for me. To think that Pearsall's a buy right now is basically making the bet that one of those two guys is going to be injured or one of those two guys is going to be traded in the next 2 months. And I'm not going to make either of those bets right now. I think the real problem with Pearsall is that I don't know that he's their wide receiver 3, to be honest with you. I think in targets, he'll be their wide receiver 3. In snaps on the field, I think Jawan Jennings is still going to be on the field instead of Pearsall this year. And he plays a role in that Kyle Shanahan offense. He's basically a glorified fullback, and he is a key part of him and Juszczyk are a key part of allowing Christian McCaffrey and allowing Ayuk and allowing Deebo Samuel to do all the things that they do. You're not going to put Pearsall in that role. Pearsall is a play for one of the other two receivers not to be there. And we know how fickle Dynasty brain is, that if we get into week 7, week 8, and we're seeing Pearsall play 15% of the snaps, get 2 targets per game, people are going to be giving him away. And versus the ability to kind of think and say, well, one of these 49ers receivers are going to be gone.
How much did JSN's dynasty value drop
Yeah.
in the
And
last 12 months?
we knew that situation coming in. And even we talk about Quentin Johnston to lead the show off. That's another player that
Jagger
we
is
knew that
never
situation
having me
was
back. He hates me so much. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. This is
Yeah.
good. This is good. Like we agree way too much on here,
we do.
so
We
it's a
agree a lot. So
yeah. I we picked some good ones, guys. I guess. I just I don't know, man. I feel like maybe I'm always on the wrong side of history. Maybe I'm just that guy. Like there's like an episode of How I Met Your Mother where you get the blitz. You know, like you're always a dude that's late or you miss something. Because for me, I always believe like, well, they haven't traded him and it's fine, and then I end up that they traded him. Like again, maybe I'm
Mhm.
really hurt by Justin Fields after all that talk, so I don't get emotional. Like maybe I've experienced some trauma there. It's just I don't know, like and again, I've seen players run their mouth on
Right.
Instagram and TikTok all the time. So like I take it with a grain of salt. It just looks bad. So like to me, I think either way, I think that Pearsall, if he's not going to gain value this year, he's going to gain that back next year. Because like we've talked about JSN being a buy on here a lot. So I like to me the risk, the first year risk is insulated. The point I will concede to Jeff is that he could be cheaper later if he does pull a JSN. Because
Yeah.
like we keep talking about it, like we've turned Dynasty into like the stock market where we flip out and tank value over someone getting elected or something.
yeah.
Like I'm surprised players don't lose value because it's an election year. Like it could be crazy at this point now. With that being said, I'll go over the guy that I've skipped, and that's because I routinely skip him in startups, and I need to. I'm giving you credit. I need to pay better attention. Jeff, you have Jameson Williams right now. He is keep trade cut wide receiver 49. I've had him in my queue a couple of times, just missed out. Tell us the gospel.
The biggest thing here is we've seen the physical ability translate to the NFL level. We've seen him be the explosion has translated. He's had different situations that have kept him off the field, injuries, gambling, other things that have kept him off the field, and so that's been a problem. There's been talk about maybe his mindset wasn't quite right coming into the league, and now the team has really embraced it, and he's really embraced that. You look at the Lions losing Josh Reynolds. That was between Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and Jameson Williams last year, there were 150 targets between those three players. And obviously Raymond is still there, but I don't know that Raymond's going to grab a bigger role than his 40 some targets that he had last year. There's a lot of opportunity inside an offense that we traditionally think about. Well, we've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, we've got Sam Laporta, we've got Jahmyr Gibbs, we got David Montgomery. How can there be any room for another player to be a fantasy stalwart or a fantasy contributor? But Jameson Williams is the type of player that in one play, he can give you a 13-point play. He can stack those on top, and that's a boom week that makes a big difference for you. And if he hits his ceiling, that where he was drafted as a top, I think 11 player in his draft, I mean, that is a difference maker, and that's a top 24 potential wide receiver. So that's where, if you can buy into this now at wide receiver 49 and kind of put aside maybe some of the concerns about the last couple of years and just look at the talent, look at situation, this is a high upside offense that we absolutely love. We believe in the offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. And that's where I think you're not exactly wrong on Pearsall. You're buying a great system and a player that you believe in. And that's what Jameson Williams is a lot of too. It's just he's got more runway and opportunity to deliver that this year.
Yeah, and Williams for me, it's just taking his price to go down because like I don't think he was like everyone wanted him to be Jalen Waddle right away, and I don't think he was good as Waddle, but like now you're getting him as a flex player. And what I tell everyone, you should accept variance in the flex. Like if you're lucky to have 5 studs at wide receiver, bro, good for you. Like you just keep on riding. But like especially after a startup or something like that, like and again, I'm still kind of in startup mode, but when you have those flurry of trades, Jameson Williams is someone that I might be aggressive on and try to get early to because like your flex isn't as sexy after startup because all that talent's kind of went elsewhere. So I am with you. I've came around to liking Jameson Williams. Heath, are you a JMO fan? And I'm talking about the player.
Yeah, I've been down on him, but I think like you said, the value has fallen enough to where I'm in. Like, I think historically you look at this type of profile and this much production through the first 2 years, and if you make a bet on all the players, you're going to lose that bet more often than not. But he has enough, and maybe I just like the story because I did some gambling in college and it sidetracked my college degree for 7 to 8 years. So like, I get it. But no, I think the physical talent's there. The offensive system is great. Buying him in the wide receiver 40 range, much less lower than that, I like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's get these high variance players. With that being said, we're going to quickly move through our last 3 sells. Heath, your guy, Derrick Henry. He's someone he's like I said, Father Time's undefeated. Is he though? With Derrick Henry, like what is it going to happen?
Well, so far he is undefeated, but I like Derrick Henry's trying to challenge that. And I made the joke on our regular show today talking redraft that like everybody over the last 5 years has at one point or another doubted Derrick Henry and been proved a fool. And it's just my turn. But I don't understand his dynasty ranking. Like, even if people are in on him as a good starter this year and the Baltimore thing's going to work out well and the offensive line will be better and the efficiency will rebound from last year and he's going to score a bunch of touchdowns, that's fine. He's 30. What is 1 year of good running back production worth when you know it's going to crash at any second? This is not a top 25 dynasty running back for me, and I think his value on virtually every site is top 20. I don't view him as an RB1 this year. I think there's a lot of risk specifically for 2024, and you should not expect anything at all after 2024. It's very, very rare that you get a chance to sell a 30-year-old running back and actually receive something of value back. You should take this gift if Derrick Henry is still on your roster.
Yeah. My first dynasty roster ever, the first running back I took, Mark Ingram on the Ravens.
Yeah.
I get it, guys. I get it. I got to say I'm with Heath, especially when again, I'm just looking at random names on Alvin Kamara. Joe Mixon is right behind him. That kind of makes sense. But what's the difference between Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry at the end of the day? Like,
Alvin Kamara catches passes and was a lot better than Derrick Henry last year.
Yeah, that's what I said. But Alvin Kamara is RB 27 because like when I'm hyping up Alvin Kamara, like he's 27 years old. Or, excuse me, he's about to be 29 years old, but he catches passes and he's RB 27. He's free money. It's free money. Like, go get Derrick Henry, trade him for Alvin Kamara plus, and and you've probably won. It makes sense. Jeff, are you trading Derrick Henry, or are you a little bit like me where I'm not going to hang my hat on Derrick Henry because I've been the fool like 3 years in a row. I'm like, he's too old and I look silly. So
every year there's a handful of players that have been fantasy stars forever that out of the blue overnight are no longer stars, and we're caught flat-footed every year because it's hard to predict who that's going to be. But when you're dealing in dynasty and you're looking at especially the landscape with dealing a running back, you're looking for sell windows when you get to an older running back, and this is going to probably be the last great sell window for Derrick Henry unless he goes out and scores 25 touchdowns this year, which he could do. And I mean, more power to him, but I don't know that I'm going to make that bet.
Well,
Cologne.
We had Zamir White as a sell earlier in the show, and I agree with that. But in a full PPR league, I would sell Derrick Henry for Zamir White in a heartbeat.
That's spicy. That is I'm going to clip that and post it to TikTok. No, I'm kidding.
Go ahead. That's exactly what our social guy does. He just goes through our podcast and looks for where did Heath lose consciousness for just like 15 seconds so I can put that on social media and everyone will hate him.
Yeah.
That's great.
Jeff, your last sell, we've talked about it. People are delusional about Cole Kmet. Let them know why.
Yeah, I mean, our tight end episode that we did with Andrew Cooper, most of the comments were, how can you not have Cole Kmet there? He was a top 12 tight end last year. And so when you look at half PPR scoring, he was at 8.5 tight end points. If that even drops 2 or 3 points, given all the arrivals with having Rome Odunze, having Keenan Allen added to this room, and vying for targets here, you're looking at a player that's outside of the top 20 tight ends, and just the opportunity is going to be disappearing on that. I have a feeling. I think that this is an opportunity where if I can flip Cole Kmet for like a second and Tyler Conklin, I'll do that all day, because I think Tyler Conklin's going to score more points than Cole Kmet.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's just like people are scared about Rome Odunze. They're like, well, they've got too many targets, but they'll shout for the rooftops for Cole Kmet. I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Like, I don't get it. One of those guys is really, really good, and one of those guys is an excellent blocker and football player. I'll tell you who I want, and like, when I say a football player, I mean that, like, the Bears like him to block and be like the fourth dump off option. He's not George Kittle. Like just put it this way, Cole Kmet is George Kittle, but he's not good. Like George Kittle's going to have his variance game and he's going to pop off. Cole Kmet cannot do that. We talk about the efficiency king. We could put Cole Kmet right now in the 49ers and he will not do what George Kittle does. We have to like really conceptualize that. If you're going to fade Rome Odunze, which you shouldn't do on this show, we keep telling you probably go with the young guy if they're good or talented. Why are we doing this with Cole Kmet? Heath, or do you agree with us? Or are you crazy about this too? You're already kicked off, so you can't really get much lower.
I really have no Cole Kmet thoughts at all. I rarely consider him during drafts, after drafts, setting lineups. He's not someone I think about.
Yeah, I was the same place until I saw our YouTube comments after our tight end episode.
Yes, like every other one was just like, why is Cole, like, he just finished as tight end? Hey, like, 2 reasons, guys. One, stop using finished and use points per game. 2, it's a low bar to get there. And if you're not the second target on the team, that bar, it gets just a little bit higher. And when you look at like who goes around Cole Kmet at tight end 15, I mean, Pat Freiermuth is only 2 slots ahead of him on keep trade cut. Give a little mustard on it. Like, 3rd round, go get a real tight end that actually has talent.
Big fan of the Muth this year.
Yes.
Yeah, big. Like, me and Jeff been hyping him up. Like Muth is. I've traded Trey McBride because I've had like Kyle Pitts or someone else, and then I've had Pat Freiermuth. That's my 3rd. I'm like, why wouldn't I try to? I don't need 3 stud tight ends. Yes, I'm calling Muth a stud. I mean, Evan Ingram's not that ahead. It makes a lot of sense. We'll finish with my last sell. It's James Cook.
Fight me.
Oh, okay. You're all in on James Cook? How did this happen, Heath? How did this happen? I get Ray Davis is old, but I don't need my running backs for a long time. I just need him for a good time. And that's where I'm at with Ray Davis. Like, and we saw Latavius Murray have a role. And then when you say that out loud, you're like, Latavius Murray had a role. It's because James Cook's not very good in the red zone. And James Cook the idea of James Cook is better than James Cook, man. I kind of ignore fumbles to the most part, but he's had every opportunity to be the guy and he hasn't taken it. And then him being RB12, let's put it that way. That's my problem. We ranked him as an RB1 ahead of Isaiah Pacheco, who I don't love, but I would still rather have Pacheco. Rashad White, who I don't love, would rather have. I kind of get Josh Jacobs. Actually, I kind of don't. It just doesn't make sense. Trey Benson is going after him. It makes 0 sense to me. So Heath, since you love him, tell them why I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, listen, I think he's a very good rusher and he's a very good pass catcher. And yeah, he doesn't get the ball very much in the red zone because Josh Allen's their goal line running back. And that's a bit of a problem. But mostly why I love him is what Joe Brady did when he took over in the second half last year. And it was basically give 21 touches a game to James Cook. And he was a 16 fantasy point per game guy. And I don't think Ray Davis is going to change that because you got into the playoffs and Latavius Murray had a role, but that's because they decided they were going to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands for some reason and give it to the running backs more. And we saw that kind of illustrated this offseason, in my opinion, when you decide Stephon Diggs, you're gone. Gabe Davis, you're gone. And we're going to replace you with Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel and MVS. I expect a more run-heavy Bills attack and more dump-offs to the running backs. I think we're getting 4 to 5 targets per game and 16 to 20 carries per game from James Cook. I wouldn't be surprised even. In fact, I'll just say it. He's going to be, if he stays healthy and plays 17 games this year, he's going to be a top 5 running back this year.
What? Jeff, you're the Bills fan. I'll let you bring some reason. Is it somewhere in the middle? Is that the story? Who's right?
You say that he's not good in the red zone. I don't know. I don't know if he's good in the red zone. The Bills won't
The
let us
Bills
know.
don't either.
So that's my thing there. And really, when I look at Cook, I was big on Cook last summer, so I've paid the price that I'm willing to pay for James Cook, and I've got him where I want to have him. I guess maybe the way that you guys look at Zamir White in terms of on contenders or whatnot, feel like James Cook is my floor on that, where like I'm willing to ride out James Cook. Everything below that, I'm trying to sell and get off of it and move off and capitalize on that value because it's just shifting sands in the running back landscape. And Cook, I think you're right that the ceiling is there. I mean, the ceiling is there for him to be a top 5 running back within this offense, within what they need. I think it's more likely he's probably valued properly, and that's the most boring answer, but I think his value is right.
Okay, so the answer is he's appropriate to Jeff. Okay, guys,
Yes.
We've given you 3 opinions. In the comments, let us know who is the most right. Does he suck? Is he great? Or is he just right? we need like he's the Goldilocks of James.
He's the Goldilocks
right
running backs for me.
Yeah, and with that, we are finished with the video portion. If you guys want to stick with us, look in the bio. Alfredo's nice enough to do this for us, and click the link for the audio portion. We're going to briefly waste Heath's time to ask him how he trades so I can get in a lead with him and take advantage of him. So if you want to hear about trade strategy, we're talking about the use of the trade block, initial trade offers, counters, spamming trades, all of that on the audio podcast. As always, I'm Jagger. If you like these videos, make sure you let us know by liking, subscribing, all the stuff. And with me as always is Jeff Bell. And then thank you, Heath, for joining us.